Hi, my name is Paul Donohue, and welcome to another edition of Dollars and Cents. It's a program about free enterprise, economic development, local business, and the people who are pursuing their dreams and their own ambitions to contribute to our local economy, grow local businesses, local industry, and create jobs in our community. A couple fascinating guests focused really on two industries today. The first is healthcare. We are delighted to be joined by one of our local physicians who grew up in this community and did well and is really doing great things with one of our local medical clinics. And then we'll also talk about the film industry. We have a couple of guests that are pursuing their dreams by building their own film businesses in this community. A lot of it ties into the Roger Ebert and the Ebert Film Festival. So some fascinating guests, a couple really good stories to share with you on this edition of Dollars and Cents. Welcome back to Dollars and Cents. You know, there's been so much news lately about health care and what's happening with the Affordable Care Act and where we're going with the country. And we thought it'd be an interesting story or interview to bring in one of our local physicians and just hear what a physician has to say about what's happening, and then also talk to them really about what got them into medicine and their inspiration behind the work that they do. And I got to tell you, folks, there's nobody more interesting or inspiring than the gentleman we have next to us, Dr. Stuart King. Dr. King is a pain specialist, pain management specialist at Christie Clinic here in Champaign-Urbana. Dr. King, thanks for joining us here on Dollars and Cents.
Thanks for having me, Paul. I appreciate it.
A pain specialist. First, talk to us about that type of specialization in medicine.
Well, there's a lot of people in our world, in our country especially, that suffer from chronic, unremitting pain that it interferes with their life, their livelihood, their ability to experience joy, their relationships with their family, and anything we can do to mitigate that or minimize that effect on them is important.
Do folks, in your experience, typically just deal with it most of the time? What triggers them to actually come in and see you, and how do you advise folks as to when to make that decision?
Well, that's an excellent question, because pain is so subjective. Your pain is your pain and is different than my pain, and everybody has to decide where their threshold is. Everybody needs to be evaluated if you have pain, and most of the time we see patients who are referred from their family doctors. But a lot of times people just realize that the pain is interfering with their life and they want some help.
Well, you say everybody should be evaluated, and so, you know, sometimes, you know, maybe guys especially, I'll suck it up, I don't need to go sit, but your advice is, hey, you know, at least go in and get that initial consultation.
Well, that's important from two standpoints, Paul. First, you want to make sure that they're not causing any harm to themselves. They're not going to suffer a lifelong problem, or that there's not something more serious going on that needs to be evaluated. And second, sometimes it's very easy to cure some simple pains, but I'm glad you and I, as guys, never do that. We would never minimalize or internalize it.
Just don't talk to our wives about that. They might tell you a different story. A little bit about your background, Dr. King. You're from the area.
Champaign Central, class of '84.
Wow. And went to school at the U of I.
Yeah, Parkland and the U of I, both, yes.
Now talk about your studies here at Parkland.
Well, when I first came out, I thought maybe I wanted to be in computer science or engineering, and I wasn't sure where I wanted to go. And attending Parkland gave me an opportunity to kind of experience some different areas, and I enjoyed the anatomy and physiology a great deal, and it got me launched.
It's so many people in our community, thousands of them, really, you know, have really strong connections to this community college, and it's remarkable how this institution really helps spawn, you know, the development of career ambitions for folks.
Yeah, absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Without Parkland, I'm not sure what I'd be doing.
And talked about then the decision to go into medicine. Was there a triggering point that you said, that's it, or was it an evolution?
Well, you know, all along I had sort of toyed with the idea, and I thought it would be really cool, but I never thought it was really within my reach. I had always been told that that's for, you know, the superstars out there. And really working at Parkland, I realized that anybody can do it if you have the time, the energy, and the dedication to put in the commitment. And then I went out, transferred to the U of I, and pursued that aggressively, and it worked out well.
Another really interesting part, Doctor, about your particular business, which is really, it's the business of medicine, is that you're in a private clinic as well. And so talk about, you know, the separation between, you know, the practice of medicine and treating and healing people, but also working for a private entity that wants to grow and be part of the overall economic, development for the community.
Yeah, well, I know in my world, at least, we really firmly believe that good medicine sells itself. We don't have to go out and do a lot of marketing or stuff like that. We have education to help people know what's available to them, just like the pain thing. But the truth is, good medicine sells itself. So.
And talk about just the quality of our healthcare system in this community. So many people look at it and kind of take it for granted, the assets that we have in healthcare, but it's a pretty strong community for healthcare.
We're a very strong community for healthcare. Not only do we have the University of Illinois College of Medicine as well as the Applied Health Sciences, we have 2 strong hospitals, two strong physician groups, and some independents, and everybody takes their job very seriously. Even as early as this morning, I had one patient say to me, "Are you really referring me to a Carl doctor?" And I said, "Well, yeah." And he said, "Well, they're your competition." I said, "Well, they're the best option for you, and I don't see them as competition. I see them as colleagues."
Excellent.
That I can count on.
So much is happening right now with healthcare nationally, and nobody really understands exactly how things are going to shake out. Just, from your perspective, how do you evaluate some of the changes that are going down with the national healthcare system?
Boy, it's hard to say. I know globally a lot of people have a lot of concerns about cost, about implementation. From the in-the-trench perspective, there seems to be a lot of, shall we call it, bureaucratic issues that we're trying to cope with. And, we can sit around and complain all the time about how this is hard and how this is bad. But the other thing, very honestly, Paul, there's some good things in the Accountable Care Act. They're really patient-centric. And whether the whole balance is good or bad is really for somebody else to decide, but I wouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
And what's changed in your time as a physician? Procedures have changed, technology has changed, medications have changed, all of the above?
Yeah, all of the above have changed tremendously. The core essence of physiology is really quite the same, but how we implement things to work with that, and the medications have changed tenfold. Things have moved from inpatient, where we used to keep people in the hospital for things. Now we send them home and do them as an outpatient, and it's easier on the patient, it's easier on the clinician, it's easier on the payer.
Looking back to your time here at Parkland College, and then the U of I, and then what you're doing today, could you have anticipated that path for yourself at the time?
No way. Yeah. Nope. You kind of play life as it comes.
Yeah, that's great. It's been very rewarding for you.
Absolutely.
Dr. Stuart King, a pain specialist at the Christie Clinic here in Champaign-Urbana. Congratulations on your success.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us here on Dollars and Cents.
Thanks for having me.
We'll talk about the film industry when we come back. Welcome back to Dollars and Cents. Delighted to have with me Robin Christian Peters, local producer, screenwriter, director, entrepreneur in the film industry. Robin, welcome to Dollars and Cents.
Nice to see you, Paul.
Talk about your connection, first of all, to Parkland College and growing up here in the local community.
Well, yeah, I grew up in Urbana and went to Parkland. Two of my daughters went to Parkland. It's a great community place. A lot of friends taught here, so we stay really tight with Parkland and the whole area.
Well, welcome back.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, to me at least, and probably to many others, to realize that there's a film industry here in Champaign-Urbana. Just talk to us about your piece in helping to grow an industry.
Well, it's kind of like just the way things have been dismantled and starting in Hollywood, because if you imagine where people were making big blockbusters for hundreds of millions of dollars, and then with the advent of HD, people were shooting since 2001 movies on HD that look similar quality. Of course, filmmakers can't do the big explosions then, and now with software, we're getting to be able to do all the stuff Hollywood can do. So there's, Spielberg said there's going to be a big falling out where people that make $1,000 a day for this or need $20 million to star in that, it's going to be like all of a sudden there's going to be fewer and fewer of that, because the breakdown, it's like the internet took over. Remember, the internet affected everything. Well, same with film. If you can imagine, Blockbuster was $3.40 to rent a movie 4 years ago. Now it's like 10 cents you get a movie, or at least $1 on Redbox. So,
what was it about your career, your talent, your history that convinced you that you could make a go of this?
So, since I was 12, I wanted to make movies, and
what was your? Come on, you tortured the dog, you teased the sister. I mean, what was the movie?
We pushed a guy off a cliff when I was 11 in a movie. But yeah, no, it's just a fascination. It starts with wanting to be a actor like Clint Eastwood or something when you're a kid, and then it goes to, well, what about my ideas? You find your creative. And I went into a creative industry. I've been in over 20 years in advertising, and did some really big companies, but it's really, that's the same thing every day. It's taking on a company like, or NASA, and you do a video for them, and then you're done. And it doesn't just stay with you. Like, where movies last forever. So I decided 15 years ago, I want to get into that, but of course, HD didn't exist then. Everything was filmed, couldn't afford it. So I did a documentary by John Lennon. And then before you know it, I was writing screenplays. I was like, well, my own creative's got to push me through, because no one else has got to call on me, And so I just got to a point where now I know how to put the craft with the creative and really push out a product.
You talk about screenplays. Here's one of the screenplays that Robin has written. Talk to us about this project.
Okay, so that's like number 40. So it's
time out. You've produced 40?
No, I've written 40 screenplays.
You've written 40 screenplays, movies.
Yeah, and it only to get better. I mean, you keep writing to get better at what you do, and it's really gotten to a point now where I'm able to, do one in 3 months, and, it may or may not be as good as I want, and I'll put it on the shelf and not worry about it. A lot of them are just too big. I want sci-fi action adventures in space. I can't do that on my budget. So this one, I decided after making all these other movies that were, for the distributors who'd say, we need a boy and his dog movie, or we need a movie, a college girl and a thriller. So I do what they wanted. And of course, they just found themselves on DVD and TV overseas. Nothing really groundbreaking like, Blair Witch or Paranormal Activity or, Napoleon Dynamite. So I was trying to find, what is it that is going to sell? Well, it's going to be, I've been doing a lot of homework over the last 10 years. And so I've decided I'm going to take on Hollywood. What is it that a 16-year-old girl and guy want to see on a Friday night? I'm going to make that. They want to see someone looks like them, but really smoking hot and in dilemma that they have to overcome.
We would not be cast in that.
No, we would. Well, as the grandpa or something.
There you go. So where are you in the production of this? Is this going to get to a produced film?
Yeah, it's 95% shot. And
here in the community?
Yeah, we shot it, throughout Central Illinois. And we brought in A-list actors, a lot of B-list actors, people that are recognizable. And they were spotted all over town, but I wasn't worried about that. It was more about getting them on camera, and we did that. Now we have about 3,000 hours of editing and special effects to get it to distributors.
You said that's about project number 40. Here are all the other movies that Robin has produced: Act Your Age, Disconnect, Sheba. These are movies that people can actually purchase.
Yeah, I mean, these are all, these two are on Netflix, Sheba, Disconnect. They're all on like Amazon.com and Walmart.com. And that's kind of where they go overseas, or a lot of them are on TV. So, the whole purpose of those is get our money back to investors and try to make a profit on it.
What is it about this area? Is this an area that is supportive helpful for people wanting to produce movies?
Yeah, I mean, kind of that transition I was telling you about, how Hollywood's kind of, spread out. It's that other markets, and there's tax rebates that help people make movies. So now, I thought, like 4 or 5 times I was ready to move to California because I thought I had to be there. Well, now I feel like I don't ever have to be there except for meetings. So I maintain an office there, but I really can just, shoot here, and I save money because, we don't have as much, out there. They know, okay, if you go up to someone's house, oh, you want it from a film? Okay, it's 30,000 hours a week. We've done it before. Here's the forms. I don't want to put up with that. I need people that got to go like, oh my gosh, use our school here, please make a movie here, and our kids and our communities can be involved. They're going to be on camera too, and it'll be on the theaters or at least DVD.
Has the whole Ebert brand, Ebert Festival, Roger Ebert's connection to Urbana helped your job, your industry, and how has that impacted the community?
No, it's just a novelty, and it's an incredible novelty because I'll be in Los Angeles or New York, and someone will say, oh, Champagne's where the Ebert Fest is. I'm like, yep, and it is incredible for the community. I mean, that week that's on, it is just the best thing since sliced bread, and people talk my talk. I just love it. It doesn't help my efforts at all, But as far
we'll get one of these on the Ebert Fest next year.
Well, it used to mean it was called Ebert's Overlooked Film Fest. It meant if you weren't seen anywhere, they'd show it. So it was like, no, that's interesting you brought that up because I'm not making that type of film. I mean, they're very creative art house, or controversial sometimes. They're they're interesting looks at life that he picked before he passed, and now his family will. I'm entirely into the big epic of let's laugh, cry, and have a great time for 2 hours. I don't want to do art house. I want to make commercial films. That's all I want to make. I don't.
Interesting. And a little bit about the industry. You mentioned Spielberg, and there's been some discussion about these big budget, massively produced movies, and where do other producers fit within that industry model, and what do you see down the road and as the film industry evolves?
Well, I think it's, just like there's been a glut of films since HD came out, it's hurt my bottom line. It's not made it as easy to make money because, the distributors will pick up a movie that doesn't do well because they don't know any better, because they think they don't know how to make a movie. They're distributors. So they go, hey, it looks good, let's go. And then, so the key is to make the highest quality, most original program you can. And that is, it's just like, the quality that people it'll break through all the junk. And so it's got to go into there's still too much product out there. Too many people making movies at all levels. And, and people wish actually Hollywood would make more big ones so they'd have more to do on theaters. But what's happened is all the tools to make those big Hollywood movies now are in the hands of people like me and college kids and everywhere. And so these cranes, instead of a guy on a crane that costs $100,000 now, $4,000, you have a crane that does the same shot and time-lapse videography and controlled and sliders and camera cars. You can pop it on your car now and do the same quality. As long as you know what you're doing. That's the key. Is there's a lot of stuff that people don't know how to do what they're doing yet. 20 years from now, it'll be like watching DVD of how-to, and then you'll be a filmmaker. Still got to be creativity. The originality has to break through that. People don't want to watch junk.
I admire your commitment, your dedication, your creativity here in our local community.
Yeah.
Filmmaker, producer, screenwriter, Robin Christian Peters here on Dollars and Cents. You honor us with your presence.
Hey, thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks for
We'll have our final guest when we return.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Dollars and Cents. Another fascinating guest for us this afternoon, tonight, this morning, whenever you happen to be watching the program. His name is Brett Hayes. He's the co-owner of Shattered Glass Studios here in Champaign-Urbana. Brett, thanks for joining us here on Dollars and Cents.
Oh, thanks for having me, Paul.
It's interesting about the industry of film in Champaign-Urbana. We talked earlier to a gentleman, Robin Peters. Here's Shattered Glass Studios. Just briefly, the industry of film in Champaign-Urbana, it's legitimate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, films are being made every weekend in this area. It's a really unique it's for being a small city. It's a really unique situation where there are lots of filmmakers. There's multiple film support, whether it's the Champaign Movie Makers or the Film Society. So yeah, it's a phenomenal town to be in.
And what do you think helped create it? What has spawned the development of the industry over the years, in your view?
Technology. Technology, the university, businesses. I mean, there's so many things. I mean, for one, technology has made it easier for people to make films. Shattered Glass is 8 years old at this point, and we got in right at the point where it was switching from film to digital, and we early on invested into high def and 4K cinema cameras because now's the time where the ability to make a film and find the resources to do so become easier and easier. I say the university because the university has brought on lots of arts. The arts is very, with the Cranert Center and the ballet and the symphony, and it's just a great community of arts, and I think that for years this film world has been growing here just because I honestly don't know. It's just, I think it's all the right things.
Talk about Shattered Glass Studios and what's the core work that you do?
Yeah, we've been around 8 years. The core work we do, we're a film production company. I mean, that's the ultimate goal. I've produced 4 or 5 feature films, but what Shattered Glass does on a daily basis, we have a studio in Champaign, and we do a lot of commercial, industrial, educational, promotional videos for both locally and regionally. And that's how we've decided, instead of going to film school or instead of going in and spending hundreds of thousands to make a movie and borrowing a bunch of money in your first year. We decided to go the route of let's build up a company based on, commercials and promotionals, and then building influence and finding crews and networks, building that film network to make more and more films and eventually do a lot of films.
How'd you come up with the name?
It was
So
a
you just
list.
throw a rock through a mirror? Or,
No, I think we had when the name was first created, there was a list of names written, and it just had, just caught on. It was just like, that's it. It didn't really have any meaning beyond that. It just had a catchy name.
Who is Brett Hayes, and how did Brett find himself here in Champaign for this?
Yeah, I went to U of I. I'm from Springfield, Rochester area, and I went to U of I and started making films with my roommate, who was a filmmaker. I mean, he wasn't he wanted to be a filmmaker, but he was a college student, and we'd go to St. Louis and every summer and make a film, and so that got me interested, but I never thought I'd pursue that. I was studying art, graphic design here, and I got involved with sales and marketing in my junior year and got really interested in the business side of things and started studying and researching and reading about businesses and entrepreneurs and what people did in order to succeed, and got really interested in the business side. Always been an artist, but against my parents' better judgment, they're like, "Why don't you do what you went to school for?" I'm like, "But I love, this business thing is really interesting, and relationships and networking." So I got interested and built relationships, and then when I heard about, I was wanting to make a movie actually, just randomly, and I was talking to Scott Reichard in town, who owns BPC and A&R Mechanical, and he's like, "Oh, we're just actually wanting to start a film company." So I came here, met with Luke and Scott, and that's when we...
What is it about that whole energy around your passion, business, free enterprise, pursuing it? I mean, you're describing essentially, the American dream right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think having a strong wife, because it was 5 years of making less than minimum wage, probably, or 3 years at least, probably 3 years of that. I had sold my business that I had before, and I had accumulated some money in that. So, but my wife had a full-time job, and honestly, having somebody that has a stable income and that she believed in our crazy dream, and my business partner Luke's wife believed in our crazy dream, and I had set a date, and I said, at this date, if this doesn't work out, I'll get a job. Like, I'll just do it. And is how it always works, but coincidentally, the month before that date is when we got hired to co-produce and manage Leading Ladies, and we had gotten the biggest project of our career at that time at Shatterglass that same month, and it was like, okay,
here we go.
And that was the beginning of a consistency to a point where last year we had gotten to a point where we won the Small Business of the Year at the Chamber, and then, each year our what we've been doing has been doubling.
You mentioned Small Business of the Year. Every year you continue to grow, you continue to achieve, grow the business, and oh, by the way, we've got a little statuette sitting in front of us. Talk about this just beautiful, beautiful Emmy that you won.
Yeah, the Emmy, regional Emmys, we had received it for the Roger Ebert Film Festival, the one we did in 2012. We've done two at this point, one in 2011, one in 2012, and we're working on a couple things for 2013. But yeah, that it was a huge honor to receive an Emmy for that. So.
What was the project specifically that won?
It was Ebert Fest 2012,
Just
which is
telling the story of Ebert Fest.
Yeah, we basically it's on our website on shatterglassstudios.com, but it basically what happens in that week.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a yearly yearbook, but in video form, and yeah, it's really special.
You would think that by having that festival here, it would help spawn and generate some vitality around the local film industry. But what I'm hearing you and even Robin earlier say, not so much. Good publicity for the community, but it's not really creating more projects for you guys.
Right, yeah. But I think, you know, it's still young. It's the 15th year, and filmmaking is still fairly young here, even though Robin's been doing it for years, and some of the filmmakers in town have been doing it for years as well. It's still young as opposed to like LA. I mean, it's been happening since the
Yeah.
turn of the century,
Right.
you know, and New York has been happening for decades.
Yeah.
Austin recently, probably I think in the
Chicago's
last 30
coming
years,
on.
Chicago growing. So it takes time. I don't think we should poo-poo it to say that that festival does not help, won't help in the longer, because I think it will. The people that give money and support, and the businesses that see results from people coming for that week, all those people are people interested in supporting the arts and film. And of course they want to support Roger, and you know, because he's family's from here. But I wouldn't poo-poo it, because I think it hasn't yet grown to a point where Champaign has grown to as a film
And
industry.
what's fascinating, and to sort of wrap it up, is that, you know, you even talk as though you can envision a day when Champaign-Urbana, Hollywood, New York, Chicago is spoken about in the same context. That this
Not necessarily, but same as like Austin. You know, Austin is a community that is huge compared to Champaign. Champaign is small. We have to, and Austin has a film school. We have to realize the U of I has no film school, and talking to the U of I, the dean, they have no interest in a film school. So we have to see what we have. So it's impossible to compare ourselves to those, but to look at it and say, we have what it takes as far as businesses interested in supporting the arts. We have individuals. We have a growing art acting community and filmmaking community. What we don't have right now is a lot of full-time crew members. You know, like in Chicago, we just made a film 2 months ago in Chicago called The Origins of Wit and Humor. Every single person on the crew was full-time film crew.
Wow.
So, you know, to make a movie here, we can't quite do that yet. You know, we can hire who we hire at Shatterglass full-time, you know, to do work full-time on a film, but that's one thing we have to get to that point where say, oh, that grip's full-time, that gaffer's full-time, that sound engineer's full-time. You know, all those right now we have to bring in. But yeah, I think we could grow to a point to be a small Austin, you know, to be a mini Austin. Mike Ross has coined the micro-urban term, and that's exactly it. We can create a community, you know, the hopes of it being, you know, the next Chicago is not really there, but to make it so that you can bring in more films and have an economy for film, you know, to have people making their living off of filmmaking, and businesses, you know, hotels, if you make a film, the hotel will have that crew and cast for 2 months, you know, and catering and all the wardrobe and, you know, all those things. You make a $300,000, you make a $500,000, you make $1 million film, 80% of that is going to the community.
Interesting.
So if we can look at the community and say, what can we do to welcome more film and larger films and whatnot, then absolutely. And that's one of the things like we did with the Film Society with the Pins to Lens program, is to inspire the young people. To say, let's inspire the K through 12-year-olds to write a script and get it made and see the words that they wrote become something. And people can go to pinstolens.com to see what played last year. And each year we're wanting to do, I think this year we're wanting to outdo ourselves again, but to be able to, how do you create a community? We look to the youth. And, you know, the best way, we were thinking, oh, the U of I, those people leave.
Right.
You know, the students at Parkland, a lot of them are here and they stay in this community, they're from this community, and obviously the K through 12. They're from this community, their families are from this community. So we're hoping a lot of them get inspired by the Pens to Lens project to, you know, ooh, actually, you know, we heard from a mom who's a filmmaker, coincidentally, and she said, my daughter's always want to just be an artist. And she's never been specific, but after Pens to Lens, she now says she wants to be a filmmaker. So,
Fred Hayes, a filmmaker here in Champaign-Urbana, Shatterglass Studio, Emmy Award winner. We're delighted to have you on our show.
thank you, Paul.
We'll close it up when we come back. My thanks to Chris Foster and the folks here at Parkland College for producing another version of Dollars and Cents. You know, what's fascinating to me when you talk to folks like Brett and Robin and Dr. King is, you know, the knowledge and the expertise that they have about their industries. There's nobody that has more insight than the folks that are doing those types of jobs than our own folks in the community. So hope you enjoyed getting their insights about their particular work, and we enjoy giving the program. So again, thanks to Parkland College. Thanks for joining us on Dollars and Cents, and we'll look forward to seeing you on our next program.